Ever find yourself waiting endlessly at a big box pharmacy, feeling like just another number? At Tablet Pharmacy, they provide the personalized service you deserve. They offer free delivery and blister packaging options to make managing your medications easier than ever. Check their competitive prices online at tabletpharmacy.ca.
Welcome, friends. I am Cindy Thompson, and this is a Resilience Project. This is a space where stories are shared and possibilities are discovered. I invite you to partner with me in cultivating resilience among humans, one conversation at a time. When you think of an individual's ability to walk through adversity, Dr. Erica Harris is one of those people who seems able to find light even in the hardest moments. Sometimes life can seem like it's ticking along exactly as it should, and then one day you wake up and everything has changed. Prior to her diagnosis of leukemia, Dr. Erica Harris previously served as a successful sports chiropractor and kinesiologist in Vancouver, BC. Happily married with 2 young boys, in the spring of 2012, Dr. Erica was blindsided when she received the results of routine lab work. It was then that she discovered she had a very aggressive version of acute myeloid leukemia. At one point, she was awarded a 2-month terminal prognosis and was denied all further medical treatment aside from palliative care. Dr. Erica will tell you she is a well-versed and highly seasoned survivor. As a TEDx motivational keynote speaker and founder of RiseToday.com, Dr. Erica believes in opening up the conversation about hardship, equipping others with the tools to stay the course and to thrive like never before. I am very happy to say that Dr. Erica is here to share her experience of fighting the fight of her life and the very personal words from her son that helped to keep her going. So Erica, I'm so glad to have you on here with us today. I think that hear about the things that you have been through, what you are doing with that in terms of building something good out of something that I'm sure has been very challenging. I look forward to just having you share your experiences and your message of hope with folks today.
Sure. Thank you for the invitation. I'm incredibly honored to get to do so with you today, Cindy.
Wonderful. So I know that you have done TED Talks. You have been speaking publicly for a long time. You have your own podcast. What would you like people to know of your story? Because I know it's such a personal journey. So why don't I let you take the reins and tell us where you would like to start with your story?
Oh, gosh. I always try to propel a message of hope and strength and really believing in ourselves, even if the world around us, even if no one else believes. Seemingly, I was a poster child for health and wellness in what I call my previous life. I had served as a thriving sports chiropractor and kinesiologist. I had inspired my own community to attain its best health status, and I had certainly practiced what I preached by every measure. I hiked every mountain and I soared down them all on my skis. I was incredibly happily married, and I was the doting young mom to 2 beautiful baby boys. I was still nursing my youngest, and we were truly living life to the fullest. And we were amidst plans for a big 5th birthday celebration ahead for my oldest. We were very excited to start preparing him for kindergarten, which was soon to be right around the corner. We were also very excited for our little family of 4 because we had planned a month-long trip to hang out by the lake all together, leaving in just 1 week ahead from this point. And it was a spring day unlike any other. Beautiful, gorgeous day. I had awoken with my babies and snuggles just like any other day. And we had prepared a day to go to the Vancouver Aquarium. We planned a picnic lunch at the beach to follow, and we were just super excited for our day ahead. I needed to do a very quick routine lab, really very routine lab. I had been diagnosed with what's called hypothyroidism during my first pregnancy. And so this was a very routine lab just to assess my current thyroid levels. I had had these labs, infrequently, but scheduled at various points. And so the 3 of us popped in to do this lab, and we drove straight away to the Vancouver Aquarium right after. It may have taken us all of 15 or 20 minutes to get to the aquarium. And I don't know if you've been to the aquarium, but the reception for cell phones is terrible in the aquarium. And we had just walked through the entry gates. I have these two tiny little legs beaming ahead of me, so excited to see all of their aquarium sea friends. And because it was a bit of a delayed trip, we were supposed to go earlier. They were so excited. They were just beaming and racing ahead. And then I had a call come in on my phone. And I nearly didn't answer the call again because reception is so poor and I was assuming it would cut out. But I kind of caught it on the third ring just as I was tucking in my passes back in to my wallet. And the voice on the other end of the line had such urgency and almost a panic in the voice and was asking, is this Erica Harris? Is this Erica Harris? And I said, yes. And it was a representative from the lab. And he said, you need to immediately avoid all public places and you need to immediately go to the nearest emergency. And I'm still running ahead to get my babies. And, without even thought, I just instantly assumed, oh, no. Like I literally just left your lab. Like I'm fine. You have my results mixed up with those of someone else's. I really didn't give it another thought. I said, I'm like literally standing in the most public of public places right now. And I promise I'm 100% fine. I just did not see this coming. Right. And I just saw myself as this picture perfect image of health and wellness. And the phone cut out just as I had expected. And I really didn't give it another thought that entire day. I continued on with my day. We attended our picnic lunch. And at the end of the day, I went home and gosh, there were so many messages on my home line as well. And I had picked up these whole slew of messages. And so that's kind of how it all really unfolded. And sure, there were some obvious signs that I should have seen that I did not see. And of course, I was incredibly tired leading up to this. A few months before that, I remember my oldest had looked up at me and said, Mommy, gosh, why do your eyes always look so tired now? And I felt it, like at 3 p.m, I really felt that it was 3 a.m. But at the same time, I was still nursing my youngest. And I've got 2 really busy, active boys. I just assumed all young moms were as tired. I had also had these very extensive night sweats, which sounds like as a ding, ding, ding red flag. But I had these very same night sweats in my early 20s. And so when they returned, and at that time in my early 20s, we had investigated them in detail. And I was told it was likely due to hormonal changes from over-exercising. And so when these night sweats came back at the age of 35, they too seemed to coincide with my cycle. And I was still nursing, as I said. And so I just assumed again that they were related to hormonal changes. But they were quite extensive. In retrospect, everything is hindsight is 2020, right? Especially this year. But I should have known, but I didn't. I prioritized everybody else. There was another really weird symptom. As a sports chiropractor, I obviously use my hands a lot. And I ended up developing this really bizarre rash just on the back surface of both hands, really, really, really thick. I had sought help from dermatologists and naturopathic physicians and my own GP. And I'm like, look, what is this? I'm not really a rashy girl. And they all just assumed I had developed maybe a new allergy to food or something had come up. The same rash oddly then progressed to being on both of my eyelids. And so I don't know if it was related, but I had these weird symptoms, right? Kind of all together that probably inherently, looking back on it, all of these symptoms combined were really my body screaming at me, saying, hey, pay attention, wake up. And I didn't. I was just caught on this autopilot of being go, 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 busy, active mama. I truly loved everything about this go, go, go lifestyle. I devastatingly had been diagnosed with what was proved to be a very aggressive version of leukemia, known as acute myeloid leukemia. And I had a very aggressive version of AML itself. I had a very rare presentation in that typically patients with leukemia, they have a ton of white blood cell production. They're not functional cells, but they have so many white blood cells. But mine looked a little bit different on presentation because I just had none. Like I virtually had no white blood cells. Also, my red blood cells were quite low, so which would lead to anemia, hence explaining the fatigue. And then platelets were also involved, so affecting clotting. But because of these reasons, how this cancer affects your blood, you're admitted right away for treatment. You're just so immune compromised. Yeah. So despite the most valiant of valiant efforts, I did not respond to even the harshest of chemotherapy regimens known as salvage chemotherapy, around the clock, 24/7 around the clock, 7 days a week, really, really aggressive chemotherapy. I didn't respond, and that proved to be the last line of treatment. And within 2 months of hearing the words that I was sick, I was then told that was facing this terminal 2-month prognosis, given I had not responded to even the harshest of chemotherapy regimens. Obviously, sounds came out of me that I did not even know existed before that moment. And I was just so aghast. It's only been 2 months. Like, I don't understand how this is the end of the line. I'm 35 years old. I've got 2 babies. The first thought also that came to my mind was Christmas. I'm not going to make it to Christmas. It's my job to make Christmas so special for my babies. This very same prognosis was confirmed by a second leading leukemia institute when we sought a second opinion in the United States. Did so at Fred Hutch, which is a leading leukemia institute in Seattle. They gave us the same opinion, devastatingly, and all my eggs had been in that basket, that they would just have one other suggestion, one other bit of hope.
I can't imagine going that quickly within 2 months from being at the aquarium. And I'm amazed. Can I just pull that piece out that you remember exactly what that day was like prior to that phone call, or those many phone calls, messages left, and then how quickly your world changed. I can't imagine how one's brain catches up with that kind of experience.
Yes, completely blindsided, and literally life interrupted. The world as I knew it was pulled out from under my feet. And to be very honest, never to return through the tumultuous years that I had ahead. You're right, though. From the very first moment that I was diagnosed, I have always fought my own fight on this journey. And I was told I needed to be admitted right away. But I fought for one night because, as you just said, I needed to digest this, right? And I had such tiny children. I didn't know how to convey the depth of this big word cancer and all that it meant to them. And I knew if I used that word cancer, that I would crumble. They would have no meaning of it at their tiny ages, but I knew I would crumble, just because that word cancer itself just brings us these overwhelming feelings of hurt and grief and fear. And I knew I didn't want to crumble when I explained this to them. And so I thought for one night. I went home from that diagnosis and I cooked a regular dinner, believe it or not, as if nothing had happened. I just wasn't ready that night to verse it. We, at the time, had always had this Team Harris dance party where we would, every night after dinner, we would bang on pots and pans and dance around our living room. And we had this Team Harris dance party again that very night. And I tucked my kids in bed just like it was any other night. Everyone else went to sleep and I was up that entire night. I printed off photos from my computer, big photos on like letter-sized paper. I knew I would need so much inspiration around me on my hospital walls. I sent out letters and emails to friends, because when you take a young mom out of the house with children of that age, you need a lot of supports in place. And so I basically just told my story right away to everybody over email and said, please, I beg you to support my family in every way. And then the next morning, when my babies woke up, I decided to tell them that in a way that they could explain. I basically said that we all have these fighters to fight colds and bugs, but mama's fighters just weren't as strong as they needed to be right now, which is very true in keeping with the very nature of leukemia itself. And at the same time, it was something they could somewhat understand. And I basically said that mama's fighters just weren't as strong. And I needed to go to the hospital where they had the tools and the know-how and the people to make those fighters stronger. And it was something they really understood. It was almost in this empowering way that they adopted this process. And when we were leaving for the hospital, I had to check in no later than 8 a.m. And it was totally against medical advice. I was told by staying home that night, I may not survive a small infection, right? But I really needed that night just to digest it all, as you said, and just to absorb all that had just unfolded in this carpet being ripped out from under my feet. But that day that we were leaving, my oldest has always had this affinity to make any room a brighter and happier space. And just as he did on that dark and dire of mornings, when he shouted out in the most exuberant and excited of ways, he put his arms up over his head and he's like, "Go fighters, go mama." And that little tiny sentence instantly, so full of so much hope and promise and positivity and encouragement, instantly became what I refer to as my personal power statement. And that statement is what has pulled me through the hardest of moments when I didn't think I had the strength or ability to stay the course for another day or hour or minute to come. And I would repeat it to myself and sometimes shouting it out in my mind, Cindy, "Go fighters, go mama, go fighters, go mama." Sometimes violently almost shouting it out until I really felt it and connected with it. But without fail, it always kept me honed in on my North Star every step of the way, on the prize at the end of the line. It never let me forget exactly what I was fighting for every second. And everyone always says how hard it must have been with two babies on this journey, but they are the reason that I've survived all that I have, fueled me with this sense of purpose every step of the way. But
Well, and I sometimes have heard that in the midst of a diagnosis like that, you're getting your head around it, but often people will think of the people around them, their spouse, having two young boys at that time. I could certainly appreciate that you're thinking about them and how is this going to impact them before maybe thinking about yourself.
of course, hands down, of course. And you just picture all of those moments that you want to be by their sides for. Yeah, of course. They're always on your mind, and it always fuels you with so much strength anytime. That's why I also put up all those photos of inspiration all around me just to help me stay that course.
Beautiful. Well, and little boys love superheroes. So I'm trying to imagine them picturing these superheroes that might have been fighting for your behalf.
Ah, yeah, I'm very blessed with these two, and we also feel the sense of guilt, right? As young moms, I was so guilty at first when all of this started to happen. Like, my children should never have to go through this. But they always say that children who face adversity really are more prepared to face adversity and overcome obstacles as they age. And I have the two most resilient, empathetic children in the entire world. I feel I'm really incredibly blessed. Yes.
That's a great message because at the time I often hear from parents that they really worry about how challenges might be for their children, how they're going to turn out, will they be able to cope? And yet this is a big one to have your
Yes.
mom not well, to have your mom have to go into the hospital. And they're picking up on that fear, I'm sure, of what this could mean, not really fully understanding it.
Yes.
So I think that's a great message to have that sense of the boys are okay and how they have grown also from your experience.
It's all what we choose to focus on. I can't change what happened to me. And if I focus on that guilt, that would probably eat me alive at some point as well. And so
Sure.
I choose to find those silver linings that come in tow, and I actively choose to look for them. Despite all of the adversities, that has been such an incredibly beautiful silver lining. They are so full of appreciation for each and every day as well.
So what have you learned about yourself, Erica, on this journey that you've been on?
Sure. So this journey did not stop there. I left that hospital and I went home facing this 2-month terminal prognosis. And Cindy, I prepared for the worst. I made those very incredibly heartfelt recordings for my babies for all of those moments that I would miss ahead. I made the scrapbooks. I did recordings for them, all with tears streaming down my face the entire time. But at the same time, at every point, I've always expected the best. And thus ensued my fight of fights. And I pursued any and everything in the natural healthcare realm to attain remission. And miraculously, I did. I attained this spontaneous, miraculous remission through these natural healthcare efforts. And only then was I able to serve as a recipient for what's known as a bone marrow transplant, which
Yes.
serves as quote unquote cure to prevent against relapse from such an aggressive leukemia. And with thanks, immense kindness to a complete stranger from halfway around the world who served as my perfect 10 out of 10 match for this donor after this worldwide search had been hailed on my behalf, following my brother, who did not prove to be my perfect match. And this complete stranger from halfway around the world was that perfect match. And from his kindness and generosity, I was gifted this second chance. And only because of him was I gifted this second chance. And I grew strong after this transplant, and I was back to hiking all of those mountains and soaring down them on my skis. This burst of great health, however, was short-lived, and the rise and fall only continued. And on my hikes, I just couldn't seem to get in enough air. I couldn't seem to catch my breath. It was soon realized that my new hardy immune system from this young, amazing mountaineering adventurer in Germany looked around my own body and didn't recognize my own lungs, and decided to embark on this fierce process of rejection, and attacked my lungs just like it would if my lungs were a cold or a flu. This process is called bronchiolitis obliterans, and it literally obliterated my lungs. I fell to 80 pounds. I was on full-time oxygen. Staying the course of each and every day was brutally hard. I had lost vision in my eyes. I had developed steroid-related cataracts. I couldn't see. I couldn't drive. I couldn't watch a television show. I couldn't read. And yet I couldn't go for a walk, as I had always connected with nature and exercise. I could barely walk from one side of my kitchen to the other without feeling as though I would lose capacity of all bodily function. For something great to happen to me, I was told something terrible had to happen to someone else, and my only chance of survival was a double lung transplant. And it was really brutal to grapple with that in that time. I was declining in function every day, never knowing if I was going to get this gift. And again, only with thanks to the family of another who, in their hardest of times, bestowed the gift of life and the gift of breath to me. And I could finally breathe again after this double lung transplant in August of 2015.
Amazing.
But again, the rise and fall did not stop there. I grew strong again. And with this new gift of lungs came this virus that I had never otherwise been exposed to. It's a very prevalent virus in the general community. 90% of us have been exposed. We just don't even know because there's really no sequela to it. But it's of great consequence to those who are immune suppressed. And I couldn't form my own immunoglobulins to it, given my prior bone marrow transplant. And I faced another year admitted to hospital, nearly a year, trying to fight this darn bug. I grew resistant to all forms of treatment available, according to testing at the Center for Disease Control in Winnipeg. And I was known as the Hail Mary, yet again, of Vancouver General Hospital. No one knew what to do. And miraculously, I had another miracle in the spring of 2017, literally Easter weekend. It's my Easter miracle, where I just started to develop my own immunoglobulins for reasons no one can really explain. And I started to grow strong. And only 6 weeks after I was finally out of hospital, so eager for that calm after the storm and so excited to finally be back home, my husband chose to divorce. And I then faced a move and hard legal battles. But through it all, despite all the immense and very obvious hardships of all that I've endured, I still feel so incredibly blessed, Cindy, I feel as though I've been chosen to go through this crazy, tumultuous tidal wave, to be spun around and around and around, and to get to come out of it on this side of it with all of these blessings in my heart, and to get to serve in the manner that I now serve. I'm feeling so incredibly blessed.
Which is remarkable to be able to summon that perspective, because I'm trying to think about people who go through more adversity than their share. I'm going to say nobody should have that much happening all at one time. And I just think about the roller coaster you've been on. Decide, this is the perspective I need to take.
Go fighters, go mama. Every step of the way. We always have a choice. Every day is how we live. Each and every day is a choice. And hearing those words, you have 2 months to live, I assure you there is nothing, no hardship that could even come close to touching that. And all of these things that I've experienced are a small price to pay for the gift of life. And I assure you, you can't walk out of that journey unscathed. And I no longer see out of my right eye. I've lost 60% of my vision. I have lost my lower lip, half of my lower lip, through a skin cancer. Because of my immune suppression, I develop a lot of random skin cancers, even in places where the sun just doesn't shine. I think I've had about 30 skin cancers removed. I lost a lot of bone density. I have lost a lot of kidney function, but I still feel incredibly well. And I am just so incredibly blessed. But the gift of today is just a gift that is priceless, truly.
So you transitioned somewhere, I'm not sure exactly the timeline, from your chiropractic work in kinesiology to doing the work that you are now in coaching, inspiring others. Where did that happen in this journey?
Sure. So just given my world of being so immune suppressed, and I have to take ongoing immune suppression medications to prevent this notion of rejection. And I constantly ride a fine balance of having just enough immune suppression to prevent rejection, and yet having just enough ability to fight colds and bugs. And so that teeter-totter sometimes goes out of balance, but generally I'm very proactive in how I fuel my body as well, and how I take charge and to prevent infections on my own. But this teeter-totter balance can go out of balance. And so the risk for me, it's not just COVID in our world of right now, right? But it's of general colds and bugs. And so having such a close natured profession just isn't possible for me anymore. And that in-person, physical touch, and I will never have the physical strength that I used to have. I've lost some nerve function, and no one would know if they see me out and about, but these things would definitely impact me on a professional level. And so I don't know, my career path now just somewhat evolved. People would ask me to speak on behalf of various organizations. They knew my story, and they wanted me to propel the message of how I chose to fight all that I fought. So it started off by speaking for various medical bodies, an international ICU conference, Canadian Blood Services, VGH Foundation, BC Cancer, kind of started to unfold that way. And then other companies started to seek out me to speak on behalf of the notion of increasing positivity, which inherently increases work productivity. And so it just, those speaking pursuits and the mindset behind it all really just evolved throughout this process, and me sharing my mindset that helped me really defy every one of the odds and survive all that I have. Others just started to reach out if they were having a hard day, or if they were facing a trying health diagnosis, or perhaps divorce, or even those just perhaps not feeling as fulfilled and wanting to achieve greater levels of happiness and success and well-being with the gift that lies in each day. And so I help others change their perspectives, choose to focus on silver linings, and really open up about the hardships, because we're not here to kind of conceal those. So
Right.
important. That's one of the most phenomenal, pivotal lessons on my journey, is to really let ourselves experience and be real about the hardship, and to go through that, but then to create these tools that we can shift.
Well, it's an interesting point that a lot of people, when they're coming to coaching or counseling, I find that there's this sweet spot of really honoring the story. And that's one of the motivators for doing this podcast, is to help people share their story. And for some, it's so personal, they don't want it to be public. But I do believe there's a lot of value in when a story is shared. And you've been sharing your story over and over, and bringing that sense of good news that has come for you, but also a story of resilience through that, what you're learning about yourself, and resistance to that negativity as well, right? Trying to stay on top of that.
I do so all to serve as a friend, because even though I was so fortunate, I had 60 guests come to see me every day in that hospital room. I was literally enveloped with forces of love from all corners of this world. Our story just took heart. Literally, we were embedded in love, and prayer groups from friends and strangers, complete strangers, far and wide, literally stretching to all corners of the globe. I felt so loved on this journey. But despite all the immense support, all of those 60 visitors that come to see me in that hospital room, they leave and they get to go to work. They get to go have their picnics on the beach with their loves. They get to have a family dinner at home, whatever it may be. They get to go on a vacation. they get to clean their house, like anything.
Sure.
And you're the one that's left in there. And those 4 white walls, they really, really start to talk. And you can still feel so alone unless you're really connecting with those who truly understand the hard and hardship and who have walked that journey. And so this is why I so passionately do all that I do. And it's interesting, right? Because there's almost this pervasive societal pressure to be positive no matter what comes our way. And I've always been an incredibly upbeat girl. I've been very happy. I've been very blessed with that. When I was first diagnosed, one of my friends had come in basically saying, gosh, of any of us, like, it's so good it's you facing this, because with your positivity, you're going to conquer it. And I fully believed that with every grain of my soul. And so I did. I believed in my success, and I didn't want to let in any of the hurt. So I had built these walls. I had built these walls for the fear and the angst. I would invite everybody, come watch me on my exercise bike, pushing my 2 huge poles of chemotherapy, feeling terrible. What can I get you from my water fountain? Ice or no ice? Literally the hostess with the mostest. But yeah, as I said, they all leave. And one day, this nanny that we had to hire, new nanny, I didn't even know her, had brought my babies in to see me. My babies were on my bed with me, and she was sitting in the corner of the room, and she was lovely, completely lovely. But she was a complete stranger to me. And it just struck me instantly in that moment that this complete stranger has access to our family's most vulnerable and most intimate of moments. This just seems so surreal and almost so wrong. I watched her leave with my babies. I watched them walk down the hall. And then I watched her, I could see from my penthouse view above, I watched her load my babies into my vehicle. And instantly I panicked. I absolutely panicked. I was all alone in my room at that time. And the thoughts were just racing through my mind. Is she going to buckle their seatbelts properly? Is she going to speed? Is she going to shoulder check? Does she know what precious cargo she has in that car? Those are my loves. This is my job to be their mama. I want to put them to bed tonight. I want to make them dinner. And my heart literally drove away with that car that day. And that's by far the most physical pain I've ever come to experience on this entire journey. My heart literally came out of my chest that day.
Wow.
It felt like, and I turned around from the window and I sunk down towards the floor. And I just remember grabbing my knees so close into my chest and hugging them so tightly and weeping. I just let myself weep, and I just didn't stop for days. And I finally let myself feel the hurt of all that diagnosis had brought. I missed that 5th birthday party that we had been planning for my oldest. I had to abruptly stop nursing my youngest. I missed kindergarten orientation. I didn't get to see my youngest run through his first sprinkler. All of these people coming to see me every day were telling me all of these stories. And I was like, oh, that's so nice. That's so beautiful. And I was trying to conceal the hurt of me not seeing it. And so that was when I really started to let it out. But I don't even think it was just the cancer diagnosis. I think I really let out things that I hadn't let myself deal with from childhood even, and other hurts that I had experienced. I've lived a very blessed life. I'm not saying I've had trauma or anything as such, but we all have these moments, right?
Sure.
That we kind of bottle up or create walls for. And in those days, I just let it all out. I did not stop crying for days. But in our medical system, in today's society, that's then a problem. It's when I'm crying for days on end. And the floor psychiatrist came in, and she was dressed in her Hawaiian floral print, and she's got her little clipboard, and she literally acknowledged, I'm off to Hawaii tomorrow, but I want to get you any and everything. Like, I'm going to give you the cocktail. What do you want? Like, I'll give you any medication you want to conceal this, because I heard you've been crying. I really needed to advocate for myself. I had reached the end of the line. No, like, I just need to let myself feel this. I need to let myself feel this hurt and let it out. And then those negative emotions were really useful to me, because then that propelled me even more. I didn't lose sight of my success necessarily in the end, but I needed to really hone in on all that I had lost and let it out, and then use those negative emotions to transfer me and move me forward, if that makes sense. And the same thing is when I was preparing for the worst, right? People are like, well, that's not very positive if you're preparing for the worst, but really I'm facing this dire 2-month terminal prognosis, right? If we're not writing those letters, if we're not preparing for the worst, if that day were to come, the immeasurable guilt that I would have experienced for not being prepared, there would have been no words for that, right? And So accepting the reality of what we are facing and the beast of what we're facing, I think is also important, right? And then creating tools to empower yourself to take back that power. Yeah.
And that just seems like an important combination there. And to honor it and to be able to share your story and really hold space for that. But also then, okay, now what am I going to do about it? So that we're not just spending time in that first part of it, but being able to help ourselves propel out of that and forward, right? One step at a time. Yeah.
With these tools, you can shift.
With these tools.
You can choose to shift once you've really allowed yourself that space.
Yeah. So there was a purpose for those emotions, right? For that crying, it had a purpose. And I 100% agree that we don't want to just cover that up with medication. We want to honor that and to see that you could work your way through that.
Well, I said no. I said absolutely not. I said the only thing that's going to fix this hurt is to get to be mommy to those two boys. So it also fueled my fight, right? I didn't want to mask up that hurt. I needed that hurt to fuel me.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So Erica, if you were to share maybe a few key pieces, if somebody's out there today listening to this and they've just recently had a diagnosis and they're scared about what's before them, would you have any advice for them at this point?
Yes. Choose to focus on what you can focus on. Take back the power by nutrition, by fueling your mind, fueling your body, choosing an attitude of gratitude, however that is possible. So many of my clients come to me and they've been trying to do this gratitude journal, but they don't really have a lot of success with it because they're doing these really big overarching topics. Like, I'm really thankful for my family. I'm really thankful for my health. Take it back down. Really actively search for those moments in the day that take your breath away. I am a queen of messing up expressions, I acknowledge, but that notion of we're not measured by the number of breaths we take, but rather by the number of moments that take our breath away. So actively be looking for those, because whether I'm in the hospital facing a 2-month terminal prognosis, or I'm thriving on the beach, running and playing with my kids, there are those moments each and every day. So whether it's just a cashier at a store saying, "Oh, nice to see you today." Yes. Look for those moments of kindness. Look for those silver linings that come. Choose to have this growth mindset versus more the static mindset where this could be an opportunity of growth and learn to change and burst that shell from the inside out. Somebody had told me this total analogy of a butterfly. I'm sure a lot of people have talked about this before, but it's so true on my journey. And I was told I was coming into this journey as a caterpillar and that I would evolve and come out as a butterfly. And I just feel that is so true. But unless we're choosing to really accept and own what we're facing, and there's also another, I think it was Dr. Gabor Mate, who said you can't heal in the same environment that made you sick, right? Use this as a wake-up call. Use it as an opportunity to look at the areas that could use improvement in your life and choose to transform, right? I was told too on this journey that by one of my favorite physicians, I call him my chief, and he literally comes to play cribbage with me in the hospital. And I just could not have enough praise for the Canadian medical system. But early on this journey, he had said, "Erica, you've just taken a little detour off your highway." And then this kind of continued on for so long. And to be honest, I was like, where's the entry back to the highway? Like, it's just not coming, right? And this was hard for me because I kept looking for the entrance ramp again. And I would be knocked down again and again and again and again. But I've come to see that all that has happened on my journey has really been for me. Life has happened for me, not to me, right? Yes. And it's really, I was meant to not be on that highway that I was first on. And all that this has brought me is it's propelled me onto this new highway that I was always meant to be on, that I've probably fallen off my focus, right? And so choose to see it as your opportunity, right? It's all a choice, how we choose to rise versus reacting, right?
Some of us might have been on that journey and not have been able to maintain that perspective that you did. And so I really have a lot of respect for your message today to help others Way to go. Well,
Thank you.
it sounds like you've taken something, when they say when you are given lemons, make lemonade. And so I'm looking at these bright, sunny flowers behind you. And what occurs to me is how you are doing just that. You are just this amazing, bubbly personality that can't help bring a sense of sunshine to those that you're talking with. I want to thank you for taking the time to meet with us today. I have no doubt you're going to continue for many, many years to send that message out there.
It's just been an honor to be with you today, Cindy. This has been lovely. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us. Dr. Erica is just so inspiring to listen to. I'm not sure about you, but I found myself wondering if I would have had the same courage and strength that she did. I loved hearing her personal power statement inspired by her son's inspirational words, "Go fighters, go mama." If you are going through something similar to Dr. Erica, I would love to hear what your personal power statement might be. Regardless of your current circumstances, what are you focusing on each day? How are you capturing those moments that take your breath away every day? I love the reminder to reframe some of those things that we often take for granted, like I get to make dinner for my kids tonight, or I get to clean the house. Why wait for something to happen to start this practice? With this as a reminder, I also wanted to say that if you are noticing symptoms that are unusual, please don't ignore them. Our bodies are often trying to send us a message. When we discount these indicators, perhaps we might miss an important signal that will save a life. In the words of Dr. Erica Harris, choose happy, life is beautiful, life is hard. Be real, go live it, love it, and let your brightest light shine, own every second. Thank you for listening to this episode of A Resilience Project. We would not be doing this podcast without you. If you or someone you know has an inspirational story or is helping to build resilience in their community, please email me at cindy@aresilienceproject.com. In fact, email me either way. I would love to hear from you. Also, check out my website, aresilienceproject.com, to meet the amazing people who have joined me on these podcasts. Last but not least, a big thank you to Doris Media House for their editing support. As you go about your week, I invite you to think about one way you can continue to grow your resilience muscle. What is one thing you can start doing today? See you next week.
Ever find yourself waiting endlessly at a big box pharmacy, feeling like just another number? At Tablet Pharmacy, they provide the personalized service you deserve. They offer free delivery and blister packaging options to make managing your medications easier than ever. Check their competitive prices online at tabletpharmacy.ca